The alarm screamed through the Velrani. Research station like nothing, Commander Veles had ever heard before. Her delicate antenna trembled as the sound pierced through her office walls. She rushed to the command center, her 6 legs moving as fast as they could carry her fragile body. Report, she commanded, her voice translator making her words understandable to the mixed species crew. Commander, we have a critical emergency, her second officer said, his methane-filled breathing mask fogging up with stress. The colony transport Gentle Dawn has suffered complete engine failure. They're trapped in a decaying orbit around the gas giant. Veles felt her exoskeleton go cold. The Gentle Dawn carried 12,000 civilians, families, children, scientists heading to the new colony world. Now they were all going to die. How long do they have? She asked, though she feared the answer. 47 hours. Maybe less. The ship's hull is already showing stress fractures. The gravity well is pulling them in. Veles moved to the main display screen. She could see the transport ship on the scanner, small dot spiraling slowly toward the massive planet below. The gas giant was beautiful with swirling storms of purple and gold. It was also deadly. The pressure down there would crush their ship like an egg. Send out the emergency beacon, Veles ordered. All frequencies. Someone has to help them. The communications officer worked quickly. Within minutes, the distress call was broadcasting across the sector. It was a simple message translated into every known language. Critical emergency. 12,000 civilians in danger. Engine failure, need immediate rescue. Please help. Ellis waited. She watched the screen and hoped. The first response came from the Korean Empire. They were a powerful species with advanced technology, but their message made Veles's hope sink. We have received your distress call. Our engineers have analyzed the situation. The rescue is impossible. The time frame is too short, and the gravitational forces are too strong. We cannot risk our ships in. Crew, we are sorry. We will remember your people. More responses came in. The Zephyr Federation said the same thing. So did the Titanes Coalition. Every species had the same answer. The math didn't work. The physics were impossible. Sending rescue ships would only mean more deaths. Veles felt her body shaking. She ordered her crew to keep trying to call anyone who might help, but deep down she knew the truth. Her people were going to die, and there was nothing she could do about it. The Velrani on the Gentle Dawn knew it too. They began sending final messages home. Parents recorded goodbye messages for their children. Scientists sent their final research notes. Everyone prepared for the end. Veles stood in the command center watching the countdown timer. 44 hours left. She had failed them. Then something strange happened. Commander, the communications officer said, his voice confused. We're receiving a response from I'm not sure how to translate this. The system designation is Deathworld 326C. Deathworld, Veles repeated. She had heard that term before. The Galactic Council used it to mark planets that were too dangerous for civilized life, places where the environment itself was hostile. Why would anyone be living on a death world? I don't know, Commander, but they're responding to our distress call. Play it. The message came through. The voice was strange, not like any species. Veles knew. It sounded confident, almost casual. Veltrani research Station, this is Earth vessel. Indomitable, we received your distress. Signal, hang tight, we're coming to get your people out. Estimate arrival in 19 hours, keep that beacon active. Indomitable out, the command center went silent, everyone stared at the speakers. Did they say they're coming? The second officer asked. That's what it sounded like, Veli said slowly. She pulled up information about Deathworld 326C. The file was marked with red warning symbols. Earth, she read aloud. Quarantine status, active. Reason, extreme environmental danger. Native species, highly aggressive, high pain tolerance. Pack hunters, caution, do not approach without council authorization. Commander, should we tell them not to come? Someone asked. Velis thought about it. These humans, whatever they were, lived on a quarantine world. They were probably dangerous, primitive. They didn't understand what they were getting into. The rescue was impossible, every advanced species in the sector had said so, but they were the only ones who had offered to try. No, Veli said firmly, we will not turn away help. Inform the gentle dawn that rescue is coming and start monitoring for the human ship over the next 18 hours. Velis learned everything she could about Earth and humans. The information was limited because the planet was under quarantine, but what she found was terrifying. Earth was a nightmare world. The gravity was 3 times stronger than the Veltrani home world. The atmosphere contained highly reactive oxygen. The temperature swung wildly between freezing and boiling. The surface was covered with dangerous predators, toxic plants, and natural disasters. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, tsunamis, and humans had evolved there. They had survived there. They had built cities and technology, while their planet actively tried to kill them. These humans, her science officer said, reading the reports, they're apex predators from a hell world. Commander, are we sure about this? We don't have a choice, Veli said. There are only hope. 19 hours after the first message, the human ship arrived. Velis watched on the long-range scanners as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The way it moved made her antenna curl in fear. The ship came out of FTL at speeds that should have torn it apart. It didn't slow down gradually like civilized ships. Did it? Just stopped. The forces involved should have killed everyone on board. That's not possible, the navigation officer whispered. The human ship moved toward the research station. It was strange looking, not like the smooth, elegant ships of the Galactic Cooperation Zone. This ship looked rough, blocky, like someone had taken an industrial mining vessel and bolted weapons and engines onto it wherever they fit. Valroni Research Station. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Indomitable. We're here to help. Can you patch us through to the Gentle Dawn? We need to coordinate the rescue. Ellis opened the communication channel. Herself, Captain Chen, this is Commander Velis. We are grateful you came, but I must warn you, our best engineers say the rescue is impossible. The time frame is too short. The gravitational forces are too strong. There was a pause. Then the human captain spoke again. Her voice sounded amused. Commander, impossible just means nobody's done it yet. We're going to get your people out, all of them. Now let's talk to that transport ship and figure out how we're going to do this. Velis felt something she hadn't felt since the crisis began. It wasn't quite hope, it was something stranger. These humans, from their death World didn't seem to understand the concept of impossible they talked about. The rescue, like it was a difficult job, not a suicide mission. Maybe that was what living on a death world did to a species. Maybe it made them crazy enough to try anything. Veles opened the channel to the gentle dawn and introduced the humans. She didn't know if this would save her people or just give them false hope before the end, but at least they wouldn't die alone. At least someone had tried. She watched the human ship move into position near the dying transport. The countdown timer showed 41 hours left. Either they would witness a miracle or they would watch the death world species fail like everyone else. Veles realized she was hoping for the miracle. Captain Sarah Chen looked at the Roni transport ship on her display screen and felt her stomach tighten. It was bad, really bad. The ship was breaking apart in slow motion, held together by hope and not much else. 41 hours until it fell into the gas giant below. 12,000 people on board who were counting on her crew. Just another day at the office, she thought. Marcus, what do you think? She asked her chief engineer, Lieutenant Marcus Webb whistled low as he studied the scans. Well, Captain, it's a mess. Their engines are completely dead. Life support is running on backup power that won't last more than 30 hours. The hull has 17 major fractures and probably hundreds of small ones we can't see yet. And they're sinking into a gravity well that's pulling at them harder every minute. But can we save them? Marcus grinned. I didn't say we couldn't. I just said it was a mess. Give me a few hours to work out the details. Sarah smiled. That was why she loved her crew. They were all crazy enough to think like her. She opened the communication channel to the Velroni station. Commander Veles, this is Captain Chen. We're going to send EVA teams over to the transport to stabilize it, then we'll tow it out of the gravity well. There was a long silence when Commander Veles spoke again. Her voice sounded strange through the translator. Shocked. Maybe. Captain Chen, did you say EVA teams? Extravehicular activity in space? Yes, that's the plan. Why? Another pause. Captain, our species cannot survive EVA operations. Radiation exposure, the temperature extremes, the pressure differences, it would kill us in seconds. Our bodies are too fragile. That's why we use automated systems and drones. Sarah blinked. She had forgotten that not all species were built like humans. Oh well, humans can handle EVA just fine. We do it all the time. It's safe as long as you follow the protocols. Safe. Commander Veles sounded like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Captain, our sensors show that space near the gas giant has radiation levels that would be lethal to most species. How lethal are we talking? The exposure would cause death within hours. Okay, that's not too bad. Our suits can handle that, and our medics can treat radiation exposure. We'll be careful. You'll be careful. Veles repeated the words like they didn't make sense. Sarah frowned. Maybe she wasn't explaining this right. These aliens seemed really worried about things that were just normal risks to humans. Commander, I promise we know what we're doing. My crew has done hundreds of rescue operations. We've pulled people out of collapsed buildings, sinking ships and burning zones. This is just like that, but in space. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. All right, people, suit up. We're going over there. The Indomitable had a crew of 45 humans. Sarah was taking 20 of them on the EVA operation. The rest would stay on the ship to run the systems and prepare for the tow operation. In the suit-up room the crew moved with practice efficiency. They put on their EVA suits, checked each other's seals, and loaded their equipment. The suits were heavy and bulky, designed to protect humans from the vacuum of space. But compared to the armored suits that most alien species needed, they were almost nothing, just some metal, plastic, and a radiation shield. "Hey," Captain called out Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the chief medical officer. "The aliens are asking if they can observe our preparations. Should I set up a video feed?" "Sure, why not? Maybe it'll make them feel better to see we know what we're doing." The video feed activated. Sarah didn't think much about it. She was too busy checking her crew and planning the operation. But up on the Velrani research station, Commander Velis and her entire staff were watching in horror. They saw humans putting on what looked like thin, minimal suits. They saw humans joking and laughing while they prepared for what the Veltrani considered certain death. They saw humans eating food while they suited up, food that the Veltrani's database marked as toxic to most species. One human was drinking something called coffee that was apparently mildly poisonous and addictive. "They're insane," someone whispered on the station. "No," Veli said slowly. "They're just from a death world. This is normal for them." On the Indomitable, Marcus Webb finished his third cup of coffee and burped. "All right, that hits the spot. Ready to go crack open a spaceship. You make it sound so violent," said Anan Lisa Park, checking her cutting torch. "Because it is violent. We're going to blow a hole in their hull, climb inside, and start moving stuff around. It's basically construction work, but in space and more explosive." Sarah shook her head, but she was smiling. "Can we please not blow up the ship we're trying to save?" "I make no promises, Captain." The airlock cycled open. The EVA team pushed off from the Indomitable and floated toward the Veltrani transport. Sarah felt the familiar rush of excitement she always got during space walks. The stars above, the ship below, nothing but her suit between her and the void. It was dangerous, yes, but it was also beautiful. Approaching the hull, she reported, "Marcus, where do you want to make entry?" "See that section near the engine room? That's where the main damage is. We need to get in there and stabilize the reactor before it goes critical. Use the emergency airlock on Deck 7, but when they reached the airlock they found it was jammed. The ship's damage had warped the frame. "Well, that's inconvenient," Marcus said. "Guess we do this the fun way." "Lisa, bring up the torch." "Wait, Commander's voice came over the radio. "What are you doing?" "The airlock is stuck, so we're going to cut through the hull," Sarah explained. "Cut through, Captain. That will cause explosive decompression. Anyone near that section will be killed. That's why we're cutting into a section that shows empty on the scans. Nobody's there, and we'll patch it up afterward. You're going to use controlled explosives on a ship that's already falling apart." Sarah could hear the panic in the alien commander's voice. "Commander, I know this sounds crazy to you, but we really do know what we're doing. We're going to be very careful." They cut through the hull. The metal peeled away like opening a can. Sarah and her team climbed inside, pulling themselves through the zero-gravity interior of the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered. Somewhere in The distance, they could hear metal. Groaning under stress, all right teams. Sarah ordered, Marcus take engineering. And stabilize that reactor, Yuki take medical and find any injured civilians. Everyone else with me. We're going to reinforce the whole fractures. They split up and got to work. Sarah's team moved through the ship finding the cracks and weak points. They used emergency foam to seal the gaps. It was industrial sealant, the kind used in construction. It worked perfectly for humans. The Veltrani database probably listed it as toxic. Sarah made a mental note to wash it off before touching any aliens. In the engine room, Marcus and his team found the reactor in bad shape. It was overheating and the cooling systems were offline. Okay, this is going to be fun, Marcus said. We need to manually vent the coolant and reset the system. Fun, one of his engineers asked. We're going to be swimming in radiation. Yeah, but only for about 15 minutes. We've had worse. Remember that solar flare on Titan Station, Marcus. 3 people went to the hospital after that and they all recovered fine. We'll be okay. Come on, let's go. They entered the reactor room. The radiation levels immediately spiked on their suit. Sensors, alarms started beeping up on the research station. Everyone watching the video feed gasped in horror. The humans were walking into what they considered a death trap, but Marcus just hummed to himself as he worked. He opened access panels, rerouted systems, and manually operated controls that were supposed to be handled by automated systems. His team worked with him, moving quickly and efficiently. 14 minutes later, they walked back out. Reactor was stable, see, Marcus said cheerfully. No problem. We'll need some anti-radiation medication when we get back, but we're fine. On the research station, Commander Veli stared at the screen. These humans had just absorbed enough radiation to kill a Veltrani 100 times over, and they were calling it fine. Then something went wrong. One of the human engineers, a young man named David Torres, was working on sealing a hull fracture when his suit's oxygen line caught on a piece of debris. It tore open. Sarah heard the alarm over the radio. Torres report, Captain, I've got a suit breach, losing air. Get to the ship now. I'm trying, but I'm tangled up in weight. I think I can. There was a sound of ripping fabric. Okay, I'm free. Heading back. Torres pulled himself through the ship toward the airlock. His suit was leaking air. He was breathing vacuum. For 40 seconds he was exposed to hard space. He made it to the airlock. The medical team got him inside and repressurized. Yuki was working on him within a minute. Is he alive? Sarah asked, her voice tight. Yeah, Yuki said, sounding surprised. Yeah, he's breathing, conscious even. He's got some lung damage from the vacuum exposure, but nothing critical. He's going to be okay. Sarah let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Torres, you scared me. Sorry, Captain. Torres' weak voice came over the radio. My bad. Hey, at least now I can say I've done a spacesuit walk without a suit. That's got to count for something. On the research station, the Velrani couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. A human had been exposed to hard vacuum. He had survived, and now he was making jokes about it. Commander Veli's the rescue operation had been going for 6 hours, and Commander Veli still couldn't believe what she was watching. The humans swarmed through the damaged transport ship like they owned the place, they moved through corridors that registered as lethal on Velrani sensors. They worked in sections where the temperature was below freezing or hot. Enough to cook most species. They didn't seem to care. Commander, her science officer said, pointing at one of the video feeds, "Look at this human. She's been working in the reactor section for 3 hours. The radiation exposure should have incapacitated her by now." Veles watched the human engineer climb through a crawl space, pulling cables behind her. The radiation badge on her suit was bright red, critical levels, but the engineer just kept working, singing something called a rock song over the open channel. Their bodies must process radiation differently than ours, Bella said, or maybe they just heal faster. I don't know anymore. These humans are making me question everything we know about biology. The biggest challenge came when the humans started evacuating the Veltrani. Civilians, there were 12,000 people on the transport, and many of them were injured or in shock. The humans wanted to help, but there was a problem, a big problem. Throni were fragile. Their exoskeletons were thin, designed for low gravity and gentle environments. A human handshake could crack a Velrani's arm. Friendly pat on the back could break ribs. The first incident happened when a human rescue worker tried to help a Velrani child who had fallen. The human reached out instinctively, grabbed the child to steady them, and accidentally fractured the child's shell in 3 places. The human was horrified. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Is she okay?" Dr. Yuki Tanaka rushed over with her medical team. She carefully examined the Veltrani child, who was crying in pain and fear. Yuki's hands moved with incredible gentleness, barely touching the injured areas. "Captain Chen, we have a problem," Yuki reported over the radio. "We're an LT Unc and GT, too strong for them. We're going to hurt people if we're not extremely careful." Sarah's voice came back immediately. "All rescue personnel, new protocol. Treat every like they're made of glass, and I mean expensive glass, museum quality. Use both hands, minimal pressure, slow movements. If you're not sure you can move someone safely, call medical. Yuki, I need you to give everyone a quick lesson on Veltrani anatomy for the next 20 minutes. Yuki taught the rescue crews how to handle without breaking them. She showed them where the exoskeleton was strongest, how to distribute pressure, how to lift without crushing. The humans listened carefully and practiced with small objects until they got the feel for it. Then they went back to work, this time with incredible care. Veles watched as humans who had been casually tossing around heavy equipment now moved like they were handling soap bubbles. A big muscular human man carried a Velroni elder to safety, his face tight with concentration as he held the alien with the same care you give to a newborn baby. "They're adapting," Veles's second officer observed, "in real time. That should be impossible. Everything they do should be impossible," Veles replied. "I'm starting to think impossible is their specialty." Then the reactor situation got worse. Marcus Webb had stabilized the reactor, but it was only a temporary fix. The cooling system was damaged beyond repair. Without proper cooling, the reactor would eventually overheat and explode or melt down, or both. Either way, everyone would die. "Captain, we've got a problem," Marcus reported. "The reactor is going to go critical in about 18 hours, maybe less. We need to shut it down completely. And vent the core. Can you do it, Sarah? Asked. Oh, sure, it's easy. Open the venting ports, drain the fuel rods, flush the system. The problem is someone has to do it manually because the controls are fried, and that someone is going to take a radiation bath that makes our earlier exposure look like a day at the beach. Sarah was quiet for a moment. How bad, Marcus? Bad enough that I wouldn't recommend it, but not bad enough that it'll kill us if we're fast. We get in, vent the reactor, get out. 20 minutes, maybe 30. We'll be sick for a few days, but we'll survive. You're sure, Captain? I've read my own species history. Human nuclear workers used to do stuff like this all the time back in the early days. Some of them got way worse doses and lived to retirement. We're tougher than we look. All right. Assemble your team. But Marcus, I want you to move fast in and out. You got it, boss. Marcus took 2 engineers with him into the reactor core. On the research station, the Velroni watched in silent horror. The radiation readings were off the charts. The humans were walking into what the Velroni considered certain death, but the humans just got to work. They opened panels, pulled levers, and manually operated systems. Marcus narrated the process over the radio, his voice calm and professional. Okay, opening vent port 1. There we go. Port 2. Good, now I need to. Yep. Got it. Fuel rod 1 is draining. How's everyone doing? Hot and glowy, one of his engineers replied, but I'm okay. Same here, said the other, though I think my radiation badge just gave up and died. Yeah, mine too. Okay, almost done. Just need to flush the cooling lines and we're good. 32 minutes after they entered, the team walked out. They had absorbed enough radiation to kill most species 10 times over. They would need serious medical treatment, but they had done it. The reactor was safe. Yuki met them at the medical bay. Strip down, all of you. I need to get anti-radiation meds into you immediately. Doc, you're going to give us a lecture, aren't you? Marcus asked. You're damn right I am. What you 3 just did was incredibly stupid and dangerous, but necessary. Marcus pointed out. That doesn't make it less stupid. Yuki prepared injections for all 3 of them. You're going to feel terrible for the next few days. Nausea, fatigue, maybe some hair loss, but you'll live. See, Marcus said cheerfully. Totally worth it. We saved 12,000 people in all. It cost me was a bad hair day while the humans were dealing with the reactor. Other teams were working on the ship's hull. The fractures were spreading. Every hour that passed, the gravity well pulled harder and the stress on the ship increased. They needed to reinforce the hull or it would break apart before they could tow it to safety. The problem was they didn't have proper repair materials. The Indomitable was a mining vessel, not a repair ship, so the humans improvised. They used industrial foam, the kind meant for sealing mining tunnels. They welded scrap metal over the cracks. They even used something called duct tape, which turned out to be some kind of universal human solution for everything. The Velroni database listed it as primitive adhesive material. The humans called it the most important invention in history. If duct tape can't fix it, nothing can. One human said while wrapping it around a cracked support beam. Commander Veles had stopped trying to understand human logic. She just watched and hoped it would work. Then came the biggest challenge yet. The humans needed to physically attach to cables to the transport ship. That meant going outside, to the worst parts of the hull where the damage was severe and the stress forces were strongest. It was dangerous even for humans. Sarah Chin led that team herself. She took 5 crew members and went out to the most damaged section of the hull. They had to drill anchor points into metal that was already cracking. One wrong move in the whole section could collapse, taking them with it. Easy does it, Sarah said as they worked nice and slow. Remember, we're dealing with damaged material here. They drilled the first anchor point. The metal held. Second point still good. Third, fourth, fifth, all successful. They were attaching the 6th point when the hull groaned. Captain, we've got stress warnings. Someone called over the radio. I hear it, Sarah replied. Everyone back up slowly. Don't make any sudden movements. The metal groaned. Again, a crack appeared, spreading from where they had been drilling. The whole section was failing. Go, 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 Sarah ordered. The team pushed off from the hull, floating back toward the Indomitable. Behind them, a 50m section of the transport's hull collapsed inward. With silent violence, metal twisted and broke. If they had been there 5 seconds longer, they would have been crushed. Everyone okay? Sarah asked, doing a quick head count. All present, Captain. Her team confirmed. Good, let's try that again. Different section. On the research station, Velis couldn't believe it. The humans had almost died, and they were just going to try again. Like it was nothing, like they hadn't just escaped death by seconds. The second attempt was successful. The tow cables were attached. The Indomitable was ready to pull the transport ship out of the gravity well. But then Yuki made a discovery that changed everything. She had been treating injured Voltroni civilians all day, learning their physiology as she went. Now she was examining a patient who had been in the reactor before the humans shut it down. The Voltroni was showing signs of radiation poisoning. Yuki checked her scans and felt her stomach drop. Captain, we have a problem, a big one. What is it, Doc? The Velroni process radiation differently than humans. What we consider survivable exposure is lethal too. The tow cables were attached. The Indomitable was in position. Captain Sarah Chin sat in her command chair and looked at the numbers on her screen. They weren't good. Marcus, give me the odds, she said quietly. Her chief engineer rubbed his tired eyes. He had been awake for 24 hours straight, and the radiation exposure was starting to make him feel sick, but he still pulled up the calculations. The transport ship weighs 5 times what we do. The gravity well is pulling both ships down at increasing speed. Our engines are designed for asteroid mining, not towing. If we burn at maximum power, we might be able to pull the transport out. We might also burn out our engines and doom both ships. What's your gut feeling? Marcus looked at her. My gut says we have to try. Those 12,000 people didn't come this far to die now. Sarah nodded. She opened the shipwide channel. All hands. This is the captain. We're about to begin tow operations. It's going to be rough, very rough. I need everyone at their stations and ready for anything. Engineering. I'm going to ask things of our engines that they were never designed to do. Damage control, be ready to respond to anything that breaks. Medical, prepare for casualties. This is what we came here to do. Let's bring these people home. She switched to the external channel. Commander Velis, we're beginning the tow now. Keep your people calm. This might get a little bumpy on the research station. Bellies watched as the human ship began to move. The Indomitable pulled against the tow cables. The transport ship resisted, held by the planet's massive gravity. For a moment nothing happened. Then, slowly, the transport began to move. "They're doing it," Veles' second officer whispered. "They're actually doing it, but it wasn't that simple. The transport was moving, yes, but not fast enough. The gravity well was too strong, even with the Indomitables. Engines burning at full power, they were only slowing the descent, not stopping it, not reversing it." Captain Marcus reported, "We're not going to make it. The engines are giving everything they have, but it's not enough. We need more power." Sarah's mind raced. There had to be a solution. There was always a solution. You just had to be willing to think outside the box, or in this case, outside what was safe or sane or even remotely advisable. "What if we redirect power from other systems?" she asked. "Already doing it. Life support is at minimum. Weapons are offline. We're running everything we can into the engines. It's still not enough." Sarah stared at the screen at the slowly falling transport ship, at the 12,000 lives depending on her. There was one option left. It was crazy dangerous, possibly suicidal, exactly the kind of thing humans were famous for. "The tow cables aren't going to work," she said. "We need to push." Silence on the bridge. Captain Marcus said carefully, "Did you just say push?" The Indomitable was designed as a mining ship. Our bow is reinforced for ramming asteroids. What if we detach the tow cables and physically push the transport with our ship? That's Marcus paused. "That's actually insane. The forces involved would damage both ships. We'd be gambling that our hull can take the stress, and we'd have to push them through the upper atmosphere of the gas giant to break free of the gravity well. The friction and heat would be intense." "But would it work?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Yeah, it might work. It might also kill us all. Better odds than we have now." "Do it." The crew moved into action. They detached the tow cables. The Indomitable maneuvered into position, its reinforced bow pointing at the transport ship's stern. On the research station, the Veltrani watched in confusion and growing horror. As they realized what the humans were about to do, "They can't be serious," someone said. "They're going to ram the ship," another asked. Commander Veles just shook her head. "They're humans. Of course they're serious." Indomitable made contact. Metal screamed as the two ships came together. Sarah felt the impact through her entire body. Alarms started blaring. Then the engines kicked in, pushing both ships upward against the gravity well. It was working barely. The ships were climbing, but the strain was enormous. "Hull stress at 70%, someone reported. "Engine temperature critical," Marcus added. "We're going to overheat. Keep pushing," Sarah ordered. "We're not stopping now." They climbed higher. The gas giant's upper atmosphere began to lick at both ships. The friction generated heat. Lots of heat. The hull started to glow. Hull temperature rising fast. The damage control officer reported, "We're going to start losing hull integrity." Engineering teams reinforced the critical sections. Sarah commanded, "Whatever you have to do, keep this ship together." All over the Indomitable, human engineers rushed to weak points. They welded supports. They patched breaches. They manually held systems together when automated systems failed. In one section, Marcus himself was using his body to brace a support beam that was bending under the stress. Marcus reports Sarah called, "Little." "Busy, Captain," he grunted. The metal beam was superheated, burning through his gloves, but he didn't let go, just having a disagreement with this support column about which one of us is stronger. "I'm winning so far." The ships pushed higher, the atmosphere grew thicker, the heat grew worse. The hull temperature was now beyond red hot. It was white hot. Metal that wasn't designed for this kind of abuse was starting to fail. On the transport ship, the Velrani civilians were terrified. Their ship was shaking, the temperature was rising. They could hear metal groaning and popping. They didn't understand what was happening, they just knew they were going to die. Then they heard a voice over their communication system. It was Captain Chen, Belroni. "Civilians, this is Captain Chen of the human rescue ship. I know you're scared. I know this is rough, but I need you to hold on. We're pushing your ship out of the gravity well. We're going to get you out, all of you, I promise. Just hold on a little longer." Her voice was calm, confident, like this was just another day, like pushing a ship through an atmosphere while both vessels burned. Around her was perfectly normal, and somehow that voice made the Veltrani believe if this human could stay calm in the middle of hell itself, maybe they could survive. But then disaster struck. The main coupling on the transport ship, the section where the Indomitable was pushing, started to fail. The metal couldn't take the stress and heat. It began to crack. "Captain, the coupling is breaking," someone shouted. "If it fails, we'll lose contact with the transport. They'll fall back into the gravity." Well, Sarah made a decision in half a second. "All personnel, get to the bow section. We need to distribute the pressure. Everyone, your bodies are now structural supports. Press against the hull and hold it together." It was insane. It was impossible. It was exactly what they were going to do. The crew ran to the bow. They pressed themselves against the groaning superheated metal, 20 humans using their bodies to reinforce a breaking spaceship. The heat was intense. Even through their suits, the vibration rattled their bones, but they held in. The coupling held. The ships climbed higher. They were almost free of the gravity well. Just a little more, just a little further. Then an explosion rocked the transport. One of the damaged sections finally gave out. The hull breached. Atmosphere vented into space. And worse, 3 humans who were working in that section were trapped. "We have personnel cut off in Section 12, someone reported. They're alive but trapped behind a collapsed bulkhead." Sarah's jaw clenched. They were so close to saving everyone. She wasn't going to lose anyone now. "Yuki, take a team. Get them out." "Captain, if I leave the medical bay, the radiation patients won't have a doctor." "Then teach someone else to do your job fast, but I need you to get our people out." Yuki grabbed the nearest crew member and gave him a 5-minute crash course in treating radiation poisoning. Then she ran. She reached Section 12 and found the bulkhead completely collapsed. Behind it, she could hear 3 voices calling for help. "Hang on," she shouted. "We're getting you out." She and her team started cutting through the debris, but there was so much of it, and the ship was still shaking, still burning, still threatening to fall apart completely. They needed more time they didn't have in the medical bay. The Veltrani radiation patients were getting worse. The crew member Yuki had trained was doing his best, but he didn't have her knowledge or experience. 2 patients went into critical condition on the bridge. Sarah watched as multiple systems started failing at once. The engines were overheating. Hull was buckling. They had crew members trapped. They had dying patients. Everything was falling apart, and they were still 50 km from breaking free of the gravity well. Sarah looked at her crew, at Marcus still holding that support beam even though his hands were burning, at Yuki desperately cutting through debris to save trapped crew members, at the engineering teams literally holding the ship together with their bodies, at everyone giving everything they had, engines to absolute maximum. She ordered, I don't care if they burn out, I don't care if we have to drift home on momentum, give me everything, Captain, and that'll destroy the engine. Someone protested. I said everything. The engine screamed. They pushed harder than they were ever designed to push. The temperature gauges redlined, warning alarms blared, and the ship surged upward. 10 km to freedom, 5 km, 2 km. Then finally they broke free. The gravity well released them. Both ships were clear. For a moment nobody moved. The Indomitable drifted in space, its engines finally silent. The ship looked terrible. Scorch marks covered the hull. Several sections were held together with emergency patches and what looked like hope, but it was intact, and so was the transport ship beside it. In the medical bay, Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked without stopping. She had 3 human crew members with severe burns from the superheated hull. She had Marcus Webb and his engineering team suffering from radiation poisoning. She had trapped crew members who had been rescued but injured, and she had over 100 Veltroni patients with radiation exposure. She should have been overwhelmed. By all logic, she should have collapsed from exhaustion hours ago, but she kept going. That was what humans did. They kept going when anyone else would have given up. How's Marcus, Captain? Sarah Chen asked, stepping into the medical bay. Stubborn, Yuki replied, injecting anti-radiation medication into his IV. His radiation exposure was worse than I thought. He should be unconscious right now. Instead, he's arguing with me about getting back to work. I need to check the engines, Marcus protested weakly. From his bed, we burned them pretty hard. Someone needs to assess the damage. Someone else can do it. You're staying here until I say otherwise. Sarah smiled despite her exhaustion. Listen to the doctor, Marcus. That's an order. Fine, he grumbled, but when I get out of here, I'm going to write a very strongly worded report about how this ship needs better radiation shielding. 3 beds over, one of the Velroni patients made a sound. Yuki rushed over. It was the patient she had been most worried about, the one who had been dying, but his vital signs were improving. The treatment was working. He's going to make it, Yuki said, relief in her voice. They're all going to make it. Sarah squeezed her shoulder. You did good work, Doc. We all did. 2 days later, medical ships from multiple alien species arrived. They were too late to help with the rescue, but they could provide care for the survivors. The Veltroni civilians were transferred to proper hospital ships. The human crew finally got real medical attention instead of field treatment, but the real surprise came when the Galactic Council called an emergency session. They wanted to discuss the human incident. Commander Veles was invited to speak. She stood before the council representing the Velroni people and told them everything. She showed them the recordings of the Rescue, she shared the data on what the humans had accomplished, and she made an argument. For too long we have avoided risk, she said. We have called ourselves civilized because we calculate the odds before acting. We have let our desire for safety override our compassion. When my people sent the distress call, every advanced species in this sector said the rescue was impossible, and they were right by our standards, by our rules, by our limitations. She paused, looking around at the assembled aliens. Representatives from dozens of species watched her. But humans don't accept our limitations. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day. They evolved in constant danger, and instead of making them cruel or selfish, it made them brave, it made them determined, it made them willing to risk everything to save people they had never met. The humans are dangerous, someone objected. They take reckless risks, they ignore safety protocols, they could cause catastrophic incidents. Yes, Veles agreed. They are dangerous, but they are dangerous to the things that threaten us. They are dangerous to impossible situations. They are dangerous to the idea that some people are acceptable losses, and right now I think we need that kind of dangerous. The council debated for hours. Some species argued for continued quarantine of Earth. Humans were too unpredictable, too reckless, too alien in their thinking. Other species, inspired by the rescue, argued for integration. The galaxy needed people who could do the impossible. In the end, they took a vote. It was close, but humanity was invited to join the Galactic Cooperation Zone. The message was transmitted to Earth, and Captain Sarah Chen was asked to carry the official invitation back to her people. She sat in her repaired captain's chair and read the formal document with amusement. Listen to this, she said to her crew. We are honored to extend membership to humanity in recognition of their exceptional courage and unique capabilities. Please find attached a list of safety regulations and protocols that human vessels will be expected to follow. How long is the list? Marcus asked. He was back on duty, though Yuki had threatened to sedate him if he pushed too hard. 73 pages. The crew burst out laughing. 73 pages of rules, someone said. They're terrified of us, and can you blame them? Marcus replied, we did push a spaceship through an atmosphere while it was on fire. That's going to make anyone nervous. Sarah smiled and began composing a response to the Galactic Council. It was polite and formal, thanking them for the invitation, but she added one line at the end regarding the safety protocols. We'll do our best, but we make no promises. Sometimes saving lives requires breaking rules. The footage of the rescue went viral. Across the galaxy, every species saw what the humans had done. They watched the EVA operations, the reactor stabilization, the desperate push through the atmosphere. They saw humans doing things that should have killed them and surviving and joking about it. Afterward, for species that had spent centuries avoiding risk, it was shocking, it was terrifying, it was inspiring. Young aliens from dozens of worlds started asking questions. Why did their ships have so many safety protocols? Why couldn't they do what the humans did? Why did impossible mean giving up instead of trying harder? On the Throne home world, Commander Veles was promoted to ambassador. Her first assignment was establishing diplomatic relations with Earth. Before she left, For the human home world, she received a message from Captain Chen. Commander, I wanted to thank you for speaking at the council session. I saw the recording. What you said about humans being dangerous in the right way, that meant a lot to us. We're not trying to be reckless, we're just trying to help. I hope your people and mine can work together in the future. The galaxy seems like it could use more cooperation and less calculation. Take care, Chen out. Vila smiled as she listened to the message. 6 months ago she would have been terrified to meet humans. Now she was excited. She wanted to see Earth too. Understand the world that had created such remarkable people. When she arrived on Earth, she was shocked. The planet was beautiful but terrifying. The gravity was crushing compared to her home world. The oxygen atmosphere was so reactive it made her nervous, and the weather, she experienced her first thunderstorm and thought the world was ending, but Sarah Chen just laughed and offered her an umbrella. Welcome to Earth, Sarah said. Sorry about the weather, it does this sometimes. You should see it during hurricane season. Your people live with this every day. Feliz asked, watching lightning split the sky. Pretty much, you get used to it. I don't think I could ever get used to it. That's the difference between us, Sarah said. You don't have to get used to it. We do, but that's okay. We can teach each other. You can teach us caution and planning. We can teach you courage and adaptation. Together we'll be better than either of us alone. Over the next month, something changed in the galaxy. The rescue had shown that impossible was just a word. Species that had been afraid to take risks started trying new things. They didn't become reckless, they became braver. The Galactic Council established a new emergency response fleet. It was staffed by volunteers from multiple species, but the training was designed by humans. They learned how to push limits safely, how to assess risks without letting fear paralyze them, how to improvise when plans fell apart and humans became something unexpected in the galaxy. They became teachers. They became the people you called when a situation was desperate. They became the species that would show up when everyone else said it was impossible. 2 years after the rescue, another distress call went out. A mining colony was trapped by a collapsing tunnel system. The situation looked hopeless, but this time multiple species responded. Immediately, they arrived with cutting equipment, emergency supplies, and rescue teams. The humans got there first, of course, but they weren't alone. The rescue operation included engineers who had learned to work in dangerous environments, Korean medics who had studied human emergency medicine, Zephyr pilots who had trained with human flight instructors. Together, they pulled off another impossible rescue. 16 hours of dangerous, difficult work, and everyone survived. When it was over, the human team leader received a message from one of the Veltrani engineers. Thank you, the message said. 2 years ago, I would have said this rescue was impossible. I would have stayed safe and let those people die, but I watched what your species did. I learned from you. Today I was brave enough to try. We saved them because you showed us how. The humans sent back a simple reply. You're welcome. That's what friends do. And that was how humanity changed the galaxy, not by conquering it, not by dominating it, but by showing up when others wouldn't, by trying when others said it was impossible, by being brave enough to care more about saving lives than protecting themselves. The galaxy had been civilized for thousands of years. They had